So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited to have the chance to open a dialogue on fashion, blockchain, and AI. On the panel today, we have three very exciting and very experienced speakers. With me here is Joanne Chow, who is the founder and CEO of Azalvo, which is a Hong Kong-based co-creation lab. She has decades of experience in fashion, lifestyle, and retail, and she's now focused on integrating and applying new technologies to these spaces through Azalvo. Dialing in with us through Zoom is Jean Lim, who is the co-founder and CEO of Being AI. Jean has over 25 years of experience in high-tech industries. She's the current board director and the former CEO of Hanson Robotics, which our listeners may recognize as the creators of Sophia the robot. Also with us on Zoom, we have Adrian Lai, who is the co-founder and CEO of Liquify. So Liquify is a technology platform that tokenizes illiquid assets like real estate and art using blockchain technology. It has a presence in Hong Kong, China, and the UAE. So before we begin, a couple of very quick housekeeping items. After this panel, which we expect will take around 30 minutes, we'll be having a really exciting sharing session conducted by James Kwan from Jumpstart. So he'll be joining us to tell us more about the Azalvo X Jumpstart Ideas Lab, which is a truly innovative and pioneering project based here in Hong Kong. So for startups in the fashion, lifestyle, and high-tech space, please do stay tuned after this panel to catch all the information on that. And finally, I would like to strongly encourage participation from our audience. We'd like to start a conversation, and we encourage all questions related to the panel or the Ideas Lab, no matter how trivial. So please do throw them in the Zoom chat box, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can. So let's jump right into it. Let's begin with Adrian on the blockchain side. So blockchain is usually discussed in the context of fashion as being like a really promising technology for this industry. So can you share some of the characteristics of blockchain what exactly makes it so promising for this industry?
Sure. So blockchain is a ledger that records data in an unchangeable manner. Being unchangeable is really important. But the essence, every type of stakeholder can look at the same copy of data in a complex industry like fashion. This is particularly more important because in general, blockchain records what we say information flows, financial flows, and inventory flows digitally. And that's the basis for making it interesting in the fashion industries. We often categorize the industry into fast fashion and slow fashion. In fast fashion, there are a series of procedures to manufacture, say, a clothing, a piece of fabric being bought and coloring of it comes after. Information is silo, and the primary and secondary processes with logistics and human management makes process even more complex and difficult to be lean. So blockchain records every data point and makes sure that every stakeholder is on the same page with the progress. And say in slow fashion, a new emerging trend, a clothing created by virgin leather, sustainable cotton. As a buyer, we care about the origins of the materials. And using as a say non-fashion example, we care about where the milk is being produced. Several years ago, some people say that it is produced in New Zealand. It's actually from China and elsewhere. So traceability matters for any lifestyle product, fashion products, or even diamond products. Tracing the project from, say, the diamond from the mine to the cutter to the jewelry stores, it has to be accomplished with the use of smart tags and smart devices. But obviously, at the end of the day, the commercial aspect matters. Secondary production processes such as the financing and planning can be enhanced with blockchain technology as long as information is less siloed for trade partners.
Okay. Thank you. That's a really good introduction to this topic and how the fashion industry works, I think.
It is. Very well said.
So now diving deeper into the AI side to provide the other perspective as well. So AI and fashion both encompass so much. So where do you think, which areas of fashion, commerce, lifestyle, and which areas of AI do you see that it can offer the most benefits, Jean? Which area is experiencing most innovation right now?
Well, we're living in exciting times for AI and for fashion. And I could say that there are some frontier technologies that are maturing, that are finding real use cases in fashion. I don't think actually a lot of AI scientists design those technologies for fashion, but interestingly, I think fashion is one of the early adopters because of the extremely long value chain and the customer-facing opportunities that AI offers. So 3 particular technologies I want to bring up is one is computer vision. So that's the technology that allows AI to recognize you like in a whole group of people. So that is enabling people to actually do visual search. For example, in the Korean soap opera, it's the most funded in terms of the product placement, most successful product placement platform. So you could look, if the protagonist is wearing a really nice bracelet, you could basically click on a button now. There's like on the e-commerce, there's a button search, and then you could search that particular bracelet plus many, many other related products that the AI actually discovers that you might like based on the fact that you like that bracelet. So the computer vision is actually empowering a new type of e-commerce, more direct type of e-commerce. The other thing that I think is really interesting is what we call the generational adversary network, GANs. So this is the same technology that powers the deep fake. So, you could actually have Obama saying something that Trump is saying, except with the Obama face. So what it allows people to do is actually they could go into a virtual fitting room, and then the virtual fitting room could have their body measurements, and they could create an avatar of them and then replace their head, the head of the avatar with their head. And then with the RFID, you could actually just, when you remove the clothing from the rack, it actually could track what you removed and then place that piece of clothing on top of your body. So there's no more real fitting, right? It's all virtual and smart fitting.
Okay, wonderful. I think these have both been incredible intros to these technologies and how they're used in fashion. And I think that provides a great segue actually into our next question for Joanne. So Adrian, I think you mentioned that information is siloed, and Jean, interestingly, you said that fashion has actually been one of the early adopters of these technologies. So I wanted to ask you, Joanne, what do you think are, the most important use cases in this industry? And what kind of new business avenues might be opened up by using these technologies?
Well, I think Gina said it really well, as well as Adrian. We're seeing a lot of opportunities in the market. A lot of couture designers, a lot of brands have recently applied it, especially during COVID situation, to help customers interact with their products and their brands. That's definitely not just early adopters, but really reinventing the wheel and reinventing what's out there. And also thinking through, do we need to use this much waste in terms of sampling, building a collection, as well as growing a brand? And so we're able to look back on the supply chain, make it more sustainable. We're able to make everyone more accountable for what they're purchasing. So I think first part is blockchain's actually enabled us to know not just authenticity, what the brands that represent are creating, as well as thinking through as a consumer, do we want to endorse these bigger ideas? And then of course, Jean also mentioned a lot, this year we've seen a lot of virtual fashion shows, a wonderful dress that's been sold on a digital platform for a really high sticker price. And these are ways in which the avatar can actually purchase clothing for themselves. And then, of course, look glamorous on a virtual reality. This is all happening as we speak. And we're also seeing how AI, in terms of just searching, is now able to learn more about fashion and design, as well as apply it to different designers. So we'll definitely see a number of programmers entering into market and being able to scale in a very different manner, as well as design and also embrace. Previously, we looked at the muses of the world and think, oh, what inspires me? Now the computer can also learn from different muses and also redesign for an audience that's much more localized. So as we see both parts coming to play, we'll see it coming to application at a very early development stage. So I'm really excited about the time ahead.
Awesome. And I think, what you mentioned about accountability and authenticity is really changing the face of fashion today. And that's I think that ties back into blockchain as well, because one of the ways that it's primarily discussed is from the perspective of creating a ledger that no one can change, tracking the supply chain. So Adrian, we're curious as to, with regard to COVID, especially with regard to blockchain's properties of having this immutable ledger, in practice this year, how has COVID-19 affected blockchain deliverables globally? And how has it helped with managing the supply chain during COVID in the fashion industry? Amidst this process, what are some of the challenges that you've observed?
Right. So before I answer the questions, I actually really agree with what Joanne said in terms of the virtual fashion shows, because in the blockchain space, there's a concept called non-fungible tokens, being different type of fashion products being created in a digital asset format and then being sold, such as Christie's actually has an auction selling non-fungible tokens of eye collections recently. But answering this question in particular, in terms of COVID time, there is honestly quite a lot of hurdles for companies to adopt the technologies during these times. I know that it's actually good times to adopt the technologies, but most likely is the lack of education, lack of a consulting partner for these companies, less of readiness for them to get ready for the situations like this. The complexity of the technology takes time for the companies to be educated. And particularly in the blockchain space, just the usage of the technology in the respective sector is rarely discussed, particularly in the fashion. So let alone for using whether it's a private versus a public blockchain, those requiring certain amount of knowledge. And obviously the talents are quite rare in the market as well to apply technologies in this sector. But there is also intrinsic or what I call inherent issue with technologies in fashion from a commercial perspective, because while it is good for a lot of stakeholders looking at different data points on the blockchain, sometimes is over transparent, I would say, for some of the pricings, inventory, just isn't being incentivized to be part of the blockchain because commercially speaking, they just don't want to be transparent. Another issue, I would say, kind of stopping the adoption a bit and requiring more education is a common issue in blockchain, and not just in fashion, is the off-chain securities, which what we call a garbage in, garbage out issue. When a corrupted data enter the blockchain system, usually the blockchain itself doesn't change the data being corrupted, and particular in the second-hand luxury bag market, or even for luxury watches market, even though you can track every transactions, when the initial data point is being corrupted, blockchain is actually much more annoying than usual to have those data points solved. So I think all in all, to help companies to navigate these times or these COVID times, I think most of them realize that they have to get ready for adopting technologies like blockchain, relying on partners that have the expertise, because it's just difficult to find talents in the market.
I mean, I think you would agree on all the things that Adrian was just discussing about how overcomplicated the process is.
I think I would agree because previous to COVID, a lot of paperwork still go back and forth, even when in terms of shipping products from one country to another. And blockchain now pushes those boundaries and reminds us that there's more to be done. In addition to having conversations over Zoom and over networks, we actually need to be able to find our roots much easier. Before this, I remember maybe 10 years ago, I was still doing paperwork, applying for organic certification in order to supply to an end consumer that wanted to have an organic collection. Today now, you can pretty much make sure everyone is accountable for in the supply chain, so that everyone takes credit or accountability for having supported this movement for over 10 years. So you definitely see that people don't want it just to paperwork or transfer PDF files. They want to be able to do it in a more seamless manner, so people can see it very visually on a dashboard that this is where it came from, this is where we're going to, and this is where the end consumer is going to receive with clear timeline and a schedule. So yeah, even now, if you go on some of the e-commerce site, they share with you where it comes from, what the details are, and it's similar to food accountability. We'll see that in fashion.
Right. So Just to turn a little bit to, I guess, what was being discussed earlier in terms of all these exciting, like you mentioned, the sticker, the dress, non-fungible tokens. So along the lines of like that conversation, there's been a lot going on the virtual influencers front in AI. And in parallel, AI is also being used extensively on the back end for the data analysis part. So Jean, where do you think that it's easier to adopt and, effectively integrate and retain these technologies in the long term, like in the front end or in the back end applications of AI?
Well, I think both. So if you look at Sophia as an example, so Sophia is an accidental fashion celebrity, I would say. We didn't design her to be a fashion celebrity, but she went on the cover of many fashion magazines. And because she is sort of the humanized face of AI. So people like look at her and think that she's a little bit more approachable. But what that really does is actually allows us to collect more meaningful data. So the reason I said it is I think many of you out there probably have an Alexa or a Siri. I don't know how much emotion you communicate, how much emotion you have when you communicate to your agent, right? But I've witnessed firsthand that people connect very deeply with Sophia. They're more authentic. When they brush her hand by accident, they'll say sorry, and then they'll ask for permission before they kiss her. She doesn't complain, but we said no. The humans say no. So I've actually watched firsthand that people actually communicate their deepest desires, their problems with her, and then people write in directly to her to tell her about their challenges and things. So what it allows us to do is to collect data about what people truly want and what their fears are, instead of what kind of food they want or when they want it. So for example, going back to fashion, let's say somebody always wears green, just my example, is because maybe that's the color of their favorite football team in high school. And if the AI doesn't know that, the AI only knows that they like green, they would be recommending all kinds of green stuff to them. But actually, an AI that knows why they like green will be recommending them to buy the tickets to the football event, right? So it's a completely different type of analytics. And I think it allows the AI to have cross-domain predictive capability versus like a transactional data.
I think that's fascinating to think of it applying across industries as like a collaborative force, helping to develop business across various industries. Okay. In practice, I guess, turning to the really like application-based view of it, Joanne, having been in this industry, what would you say, what are some of the changes that mainstream players would have to make? And, and in practice, I guess a lot of the time when integrating technology, there's a lot of legacy systems that come into play. So what are some of the problems that can occur, and how do you mitigate or overcome that?
A lot of times people ask about like brands and how to push forward boundaries. They forget that it's actually collaborative with the whole entire supply chain in order to succeed. When you see a lot of American brands over years have been able to scale, it's also working closely with the suppliers to do so. So lots of times we see is brands initiating an idea and then suppliers supporting it. But because what we're talking about in terms of both AI and blockchain cannot just be on the brand level, it has to be on the whole entire supply chain level, as well as Adrian said it really well, garbage in, garbage out. We actually have to all educate each other, as well as the technology, what it needs to learn in order to adapt and grow and in terms of improve. But if we don't all feed this information, both on programming front, both on the supplier front, as well as the brand front, the systems wouldn't know which part plays what value, and there is no algorithm that's appropriate for what's ahead of us. So I guess a very long-winded answer to your question is, previously to blockchain AI technical improvements, we were very much led by brands and consumers' end needs, but because the world is really evolving and changing and looking at ways to actually eliminate waste, eliminate the process, and also streamline it, this is an opportunity for us to think through, well, how do we not put garbage in and garbage out, to educate it to be more sophisticated for AI transformations? And on a blockchain level, in addition to authenticity, be able to recognize its value as a currency exchange, as a value of business needs that helps elevate all of it. So I guess for technological companies to work closely, they need applicable people who understands, and that knowledge exchange has to happen ongoing as we pivot in a brand new environment. I definitely see this age is opening up a lot of different webinars on different topics, but specifically to apply it, how to apply it successfully is a matter of myself, Exchanger Jean, Exchanger Adrian, working with the end brand and thinking through how it can succeed in addition to telling people this is a green dress because you grew up loving green. This green dress has evolved by these different type of collections, by the things you see, you travel, you look on the internet, as well as being able to interact with other people through their eyes. So I think that will definitely quickly evolve, next 3 to 5 years.
As people become aware of the need for
I guess it's similar to how there's now smart lights, there's a home of smart applications. We're going to see that evolve in fashion.
Mm-hmm. Just to kind of, I guess, expand upon and follow on from that, one of the problems that you also referenced just now is that the people who are developing the technology don't necessarily understand the garbage in, garbage out of, the history of how fashion has been conducted, or how branding and how satisfying demand has been conducted. So how do you form that connection? How do you help the analysts and the people and the brand work together to put together effective solutions?
Recently, we've seen a few gaming companies trying to create programs that are similar to virtual fashion shows. And we realized that we may have a great white backdrop, but we're not able to apply it and scale it to personalize it. And because we're not able to do this, it's hard to commercialize and scale up. And when a programmer does it just for one brand or just for one project, and not recognizing that they have to have functionalities that are standard, it makes each challenge a little harder. So we look back at, I have a very good example where people say Tesla's success is, taking a door, that part, and building a better door and then plugging it back in. This is what we need to do. We need to build it in modules that we can take out and plug in to test out different systems. And if engineers actually break it down in this manner, particularly asking for different advice along the way, I think we can succeed much faster. But if we don't, we have to finish a prototype every time and complete it, and then wait 6 months to testing it and complete it again. We'll lose out on not just time, but investments. And you may see a lot of people give up before they even succeed. And I don't really want that to happen for our industry, because I really do see a lot of great ideas out there just needing to be tested, feedback, and growing and improve on to succeed.
So a modular kind of approach to development in a way, like being able to switch out the various parts of what you're doing.
If you can use design thinking, apply it as well as think through, then I think a lab experience actually helps people grow much faster.
Right. So I think we've been discussing, data and the impact that it can have on everything, fashion, AI, blockchain. And I think, this comes up most often and most frequently and with the worst consequences when it comes to AI. The whole garbage in, garbage out theory has cropped up across law enforcement. There was a beauty pageant judged by AI, which turned out to be extremely racist in its results. So it's only as good as the data set it's trained with. And in something like fashion design, that has the potential to limit the inclusivity, or even negatively affect the things that Joanne was talking about in terms of authenticity, accountability, the values that consumers have. So, Jean, how do you think that these problems could be mitigated? Is the current approach to developing solutions for this industry appropriate?
Yeah, actually, I think that's one of the most important questions in the AI industry now, AI ethics. And within AI ethics, the issue of AI biases. It's a very real problem, and I'm not sure that there's a very clear answer right now. So recently, there was an AI company looking at data sets of women in history. And then they found out that Michelle Obama is considered a companion. And so is Hillary Clinton, because they are very male, specific. And therefore, anything that's sort of companion to the male becomes a companion as a category. So imagine, that problem scaling when that data is used to train a lot of the AI systems out there. So yeah, it is a real problem. And I think a lot of scientists are trying to address it, probably maybe to fix the problem later on. So for example, in Europe, GDPR requires companies, for example, insurance companies, to be able to explain why they turn down an application. So they're trying to prevent the black box issue, which is actually the biggest risk, the biggest danger of AI right now. The way some people approach it is looking at AI as not just machine learning. So it doesn't just look at historical data sets, because nowadays when you talk about AI, 90% of the time people are talking about machine learning. But machine learning is not AI. Machine learning is one sector of AI. There's this thing called good old-fashioned AI, which is the symbolic reasoning, right? So this is what our company is trying to do. We take a hybrid approach. So we pre-program the moral code as well as the personality into the AI character, and then let the character interact with people and learn from experience. So it adapts their personality, but not outside of the certain framework that we allow it. So we don't want to play God, but we have to start somewhere. Like if you give birth to a baby, you would hope that you give it some good DNA, good value system. And then after 18 years old or 21 years old, whichever country you're from, then you let your child go wild, right? And then you hope that when they come to a crossroad, every single decision would be guided by these moral values. So, when they make all these different turns, and then they would end up at a destination that, gives them benevolent values. So this is an approach that I think some people are taking with AI now, the hybrid approach.
Okay. And are these solutions, I guess, the solutions that come out of this hybrid approach, would they be, would that kind of logic also be applied to kind of back-end AI as well? Because just from my understanding, you have this character, you're having it interact with people to help it learn. Do the kind of insights and the kind of, I guess, character development, for lack of a better word, does that also translate across to back-end AI as well?
It does. So basically, the AI is trained in its core, in the algorithm. It doesn't really matter whether that's like a user interface, where it powers the user interface, or it powers the analytics. It's basically the algorithm that's being trained. So once that algorithm is trained well, then that would be manifested in many different aspects of the AI and many different types of AI as well.
Okay. Wonderful. I think it's a great explanation to how the problem's being addressed. And similarly, I think in blockchain, I suppose with frontier technologies, there's often a side effect or a collateral damage of some kind. And with traditional blockchain mining, let's say for Bitcoin or Ether, the process itself utilizes so much energy that, were it to be applied in that sense to fashion, well, I guess the question is, would it, in that case, then kind of create more energy than it's saving, or would it still be in line with sustainability values? So Adrian, maybe you can help us answer that. There are other, flaws of the technology. So how would these be mitigated, and how is the current approach to it factoring this in?
I think the pitfall of the technology is not about the technology itself. It's about the confusion that is being created in the industries. And there's a lot of misconceptions, misleading industry players that have trying to create hurdles. They're not trying, but created hurdles for blockchain technologies. The environmental impacts of blockchain obviously is more related to Bitcoin, given Bitcoin have the proof of work mining mechanisms. And when private enterprise use blockchain, they could always mitigate this environmental impact by changing the technology infrastructure for a blockchain solution based on the business need using a private blockchain, etc. That doesn't require a lot of environmental pollutions. But I think looking at the broader sense, when startups trying to approach a social setting instead of just being E from the ESG setting, I think a lot of people trying to use blockchain to in the fashion space provide more values to the original producer of a design work or an artwork. That when that piece of collections is being traded or transferred in a secondary market, there is a royalty fee being paid to the original producer, given that the transactions in the secondary market is still being tracked on the blockchain. I think that is a very good incentive for the producer to incentivize them to create more innovative and creative work in the future. And that's something very exciting to me personally as well.
Absolutely. Stimulating that kind of innovation, creativity, giving people the resources to do it is, I think, what a lot of people are after in this space, right? So, well, throughout this discussion, we've kind of been looking at everything separately. So the industry side, the AI side, the blockchain side. So as a final question to wrap everything up, I wanted to pose a question to all of you. Can you share your thoughts on how we, like blockchain, AI, and, from the industry side, the resources, the history, the heritage could be combined to really create stronger, more optimized solutions for this industry? And what would that look like if that were to happen? Maybe Adrian, can you start?
Well, I think probably my answer might not be particular just for the fashion industry, is because now blockchain is often being hyped up as a technology, but it's actually just a core similar to a database. It's just being unchangeable. I think to complement with AI, or whether machine learning being a subset of AI, is to further enable the progression of doing data analysis, streamlining the supply chain management. Because once you are able to have unchangeable data that you can perform real-time analysis, you can have better demand supply forecasting, whether it's on top of digitization of any supply chain flow. AI could be used to identify malicious, fraudulent players along the supply chain in fashion. And obviously that complement blockchain are able to minimize the garbage in, garbage out issue as well sometimes in the future, if we're able to perform artificial intelligence on the data on the blockchain. So I think that's sort of my general view. Is not just in fashion, but it's both technologies actually complement with each other quite a lot.
Okay, thank you. And Jean, would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I was really aghast to find out, I read that there was like over 100 billion pieces of fashion items that's created every year, and only 1/3 of them are sold or worn. Everything else is thrown away. So, I mean, the wastage in the industry for not having the accountability or the tools to forecast better. It seems like the challenge in the fashion industry, which Joanne knows much better than I do, is the speed of change. And therefore, it's creating a lot of the issues with wastage. So if I could imagine sort of a utopia about what AI could do. So let's say an AI could actually recognize the industry trends and analyze what's out there. And it knows you, it knows your body shape, it knows your preferences, it knows everything about you. And then be able to design something customized for you in color, in style, in fabric. And then have the drone delivered to you, and you could, or actually you could actually try it virtually first, by swapping the head, and then you could click something that you like, and then the drone delivers it to you, and therefore you have it, the fully personalized experience plus the personalized products available at your fingertips.
I'm in line with Jean's utopia idea. I do think it's a possibility. And I agree with you. If you think about the actual garments that are purchased in the end consumer, and it's only 1/3, you should imagine in terms of sampling to create that one product that's currently out there. A lot of back and forth forwarding mail, not just email, but an actual product takes place daily. And to be able to use that on avatars for a whole entire brand collection, from extra small to extra large, to be able to streamline that in terms of getting the manufacturer to easily recreate that virtual garment, I think is part of our future. Even just using a third of that cost towards investing into technology to grow and apply it, it's worth our time, because it reduces the environmental footprint, as well as change the way we interact. So I do believe Jean is correct. The technology is there for some of this to be applied to our industry. Its question is, which part comes first, which is the lowest hanging fruit, and which part can we use to actually adapt, as Adrian mentioned, the buying and planning and the process in terms of meeting the minimums to actually produce in terms of delivering, to a country with five locations. We actually have to be able to do it multiple points and succeed in that way. I think there's a few big retailers who have bought through logistics, computer systems that have been able to reduce this for their own use. But I think if it's an open API where other people can apply it, then we'll definitely see that the whole entire ecosystem can actually change. But if it's a very closed API for only particular brands to actually enjoy, but not open, we're not able to evolve as fast. It doesn't mean we won't. I think it's just more like 3D printing. The patent, once it ends, then we'll probably evolve faster. But if it doesn't end, then we have to reinvent the wheel while we can to move from one end to another. So on an industry level, we're going to see some changes. I wouldn't say everyone's successful. I'll say a lot of people will be learning from it, but we do hope to be a part of the process of growth, process of scale. So that way, what Adrian's address in terms of blockchain can be further understood. What Jean's imagination of utopia, we can definitely think of it as a part of the future. It's what makes me wake up every day and wanting to do, no, seriously, do more, because it's an exciting time we're living in. We just haven't thought through how it can be used on physical materials such as clothing.
I think that's a wonderful message. Collaboration within the industry and the tech players, and hopefully, if all of this is applied in a couple of decades, we could be looking at a very different industry. So let's all hope for the best. But thank you guys so much. It's been wonderful to hear your insights. We are going to break for a bit and be joined shortly by James to share more about the Azalvo X Jumpstart Ideas Lab. But please do stay tuned, because our panelists will be back for the Q&A session after that. But thank you so much to all of you for a wonderful discussion. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Hey guys, that was really great. I think it was a very informative webinar for myself to learn about AI blockchain. Thank you so much, Jean, Adrian, and Joanne. So right now we're going to be talking about our Ideas Lab. So now you guys have an idea what we do at Azalvo. We're based in Hong Kong. We're going to put up a deck, and I'm going to go over it very quickly. So we're going to put on a quick deck. So then I'm going to go over, so you have an idea. It'll be very quick. After that, we go to Q&A. You can ask me questions regarding the program, and you can also have the ability to have Jean, Adrian, and Joanne answer any questions you may have. So the project that we're talking about is the Azalvo project, and it's going to be powered by Jumpstart. So what is Azalvo and what's the Jumpstart project? So we're actually Hong Kong's newest fashion, retail, lifestyle-focused ideas lab with an accelerator component. So what do we mean? Because a lot of times when we talk about accelerators, it's a pure program where it begins a certain day and it ends a certain day. With Ideas Lab, we're actually trying to build a community here. So as you apply into our program, we're going to be doing rolling admissions to the program. And during that time, you have the opportunity to work with us before the accelerator program. There's actually a great community that we're developing here in Causeway Bay, beautiful offices, great people, and an eager network to meet you guys. So accelerator component, we're going to do 12-week accelerator that begins in mid-March. It's going to end in mid-June. It's 100% fully sponsored. There is no cost to any of the participants. The only cost that you bear is that if you wanted to come to Hong Kong to do this program, you will be responsible for your own housing and your own living expenses. If you needed office space here, this is something that we could discuss as well. The program is going to be hybrid. So no matter where you're located, you don't have to worry if we can't make it to Hong Kong. We do understand the situation right now. Flying here, there's quarantines. For people here in Hong Kong or the people who are willing to come here through the quarantine, you're most welcome. For people who are in other countries who want to join this program virtually, you're welcome as well. So this is going to be a hybrid program. And you're going to have an opportunity to connect with our corporate and investor network. What does that mean? A lot of accelerators work towards the goals of just getting investors at the end of the program at demo day. What we want to do and what we want to achieve that makes it different here is that we want to introduce you to people we know are eager to integrate innovation into their business units. So if you're from the fashion, retail, lifestyle, tech community, what we're going to do is introduce you to our network. Our goal is to help you get commercial contracts, proof of concepts. We just want to help you build and develop your revenue. So why join a Zalvo project? Because entrepreneurship, we know, is already difficult. I think it's especially difficult in fashion and lifestyle. The reason being is I think a lot of startup founders in this space don't know where to go. And there's not a big community to help these type of founders develop their network. So this program is actually the brainchild of Joanne Chow. She's the founder and CEO of Zalvo. This is her space. This is her idea. This is her baby. Jumpstart is her proud partner to develop the innovation portion of the business. So I'm James Kwan, and I'm the chairman of Jumpstart. So what are we trying to do and what are we trying to accomplish at this program? So we already know that a lot of people in this space, in fashion, in lifestyle, we know creativity is great. But creativity sometimes doesn't equate or doesn't move into having founders understand and develop in business and have the business acumen to do the business properly. We feel keeping up with new market demands is a little difficult, but working with some people here in the Zalvo project, you'll actually understand. So in Zalvo, Joanne's actually been in the industry for decades. This is actually a family business that she's doing with her brother. She's the third generation of this business, and she has this vision to really create innovation in the space. So keeping up with new market demands is difficult, especially if you don't understand this side of the world or this part of Asia. So what we have here in Zalvo is that you actually get really connected with supply chain, logistics, financing, retail, pop-up. All this is under our umbrella. So we know that it's really hard to scale without a network, and that's what we're going to try to provide you. So who are we looking for? So a lot of you guys are probably saying, do I qualify? What type of teams are you trying to bring in? So we're looking for people who are in fashion, lifestyle, retail. If you have tech components into your business, that would be something that we're very much looking forward to integrating into our community. We look for teams. So we're not looking for teams with an idea. We're actually looking for teams with a finished prototype. So we're looking for teams with at least $250,000 in annual turnover. This is in US dollars. The reason why we say this is that we find that that's the sweet spot for teams to come in, join our program, and we can actually help you develop and grow your revenue at that point. So we want founding teams that are eager to learn, people who actually want to take their business to the next level. So if you're ready to expand to Asia, because Asia is not as mysterious as you think. Asia is actually quite welcoming, especially if you have the right partners. We make introductions. Partners are actually going to tell you how it is for you to develop these businesses. So it's not such a mysterious space. So what we want to do is actually help all these teams refine their business with our structured accelerator program. We want to leverage our Zalvo's centralized platform, supply chain, and the industry resources. So why do we have to do this? Because we know coming into a new market, there's always time lags. With an accelerator program, we can actually eliminate a lot of that because you're actually coming in immediately having influential relationships, our network, a connection to business units that actually need to build and develop, and they're ready to give out contracts. So we want you to learn how to expand your business across borders and scale in Asia. So Jumpstart. So Jumpstart is one of the major ecosystem builders here in Hong Kong. We have a media arm, we do education, which is our accelerator. We have a great track record of success with past accelerators. In the past, we actually had 80% of our teams procure commercial contracts during the program, and 60% of the team actually received funding of some sort before demo day. Alzalvo. So this is, again, the project that we're developing. Alzalvo is a manufacturer, but it's more than a manufacturer. It's someone that wants to create a community where they can co-create, innovate, elevate teams that come under the umbrella. There's a co-creation lab here in Hong Kong, Causeway Bay. Joanne Chow and Jackson Chow, brother and sister teams that actually have this vision to create something new for the community. And we want to have a really unique space where you could have R&D resources, equipment, there's 3D, there's wearables, virtual studios to be built here. And I just want to illustrate this. And this is something that really caught my eye when I actually looked over what has Alzalvo done. There's some businesses. So we actually named them Company A, Company B, Company C. As you can see, within 3 years, we actually help these businesses develop and grow with our infrastructure. The infrastructure, again, is the supply chain part of it, financing, logistics, as well as the retail and pop-up relationships that we have across Hong Kong and China. So you can see in Company A, the revenues go up quite nicely, 5.4 times revenue. But if you look at Company C, they came in with $2.9 million worth of revenue. In 3 years, it scaled to 82 million. And that represents a 28 times revenue increase. So these are some FAQs. You know, these are the normal ones that people would ask. I could go over them very quickly. How long is the program? It's 12 weeks, mid-March to mid-June. What happens after the Alzalvo project is completed? Well, once you come into the program, we'd like to believe that you're part of the Alzalvo family for life. We're going to continue the journey with you and help you as we could. So if you need support in Asia, reach out, and it's really special to be part of this family at Alzalvo. So what does Alzalvo and Jumpstart get in return? Well, I could tell you that this program is going to be free for the participants. What we're looking for are the diamonds in the rough, the star players of the cohort. At that point, we really want to help you build your revenue. And as you show progress, our goal would be possibly exploring an investment into your company at a fair market value. So this is the end of the presentation. There's some notes that you should have in the future for people in Hong Kong. We would love to meet you in person. We're located at 17th floor, 1 Hyson Avenue in Causeway Bay. And basically, we could do a quick wine meetup. It's going to be December 3rd and January 27th. For people who want to know more, you want to tell your friends more about Alzalvo, we're also going to do some information sessions online, December 17th, January 7th, and the 25th. So I'm going to leave the last slide. This is where you're going to actually go in and look for the application, learn more about the program. It's www.alzalvoproject.com. So we're going to be moving into the Q&A at this moment. We're going to be joined again by Nayantara and Joanne. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions on the program, just let me know as well.
Hi, everyone. I hope it's been a great discussion so far. I think, thank you, James, so much for sharing about the Alzalvo Jumpstart Ideas Lab. As I said before, please do reach out with any questions you may have. Even if they occur to you after this panel, we can definitely provide you with any information that you need. So now let's go into the Q&A. Could I please ask our speakers to turn their videos on if they haven't? And we can jump in because we have quite a few built up already. So, okay, let's jump into it. So this first one seems to be for both Jean and Joanne from Lawrence. He says, so as AI, machine learning, and as 3D printing continue to grow, what could be some of the dramatic changes we can expect to see in the fashion industry over the next couple of years? Maybe, Joanne, you can kick us off?
I think with 3D printing's patents and a few years back, there's a lot of development on how to make 3D printing more accessible. So you see that in a few of the developers in the US where they're using it as soles of shoes and also as runners. So you definitely see a lot of prototypes being developed in this area, and that's actually helped reduce a lot of the footprint. Previous to 3D printing being more accessible, we had to actually make a mold, send it over to a lab, and then of course wait 2 weeks for it. Now the development could be within a day. So you definitely see a lot of these 3D printers, both domestic use and commercial use, being applied in the fashion space. We ourselves have around 5 machines ourselves, and we have the cutting as well as the imaging part in our studio, not in the Causeway Bay side, but on the Kowloon side. So we definitely see how 3D printing has advanced the last few years. In terms of virtual as well as digital, we've seen a lot of gaming applications placed in fashion, and everyone's been rethinking how it can be applied. And as Jean mentioned earlier, the AI aspect of design, we are looking into how that can be authentic and similar to, so if you're having a voice, how can AI have a voice as well as design for different designers? So we'll definitely see applications of various things as we teach the computer to be smarter and to be able to do more of what we do on a basic groundwork.
To, I guess, get deeper into that and maybe provide more on like a timeline, perhaps, maybe, Jean, you could help to elaborate on how the progress of these things would look and, how the evolution of AI would take place over the next couple of years.
Sure. Although this is sort of a billion-dollar question. So a lot of the technologies are already here. Can you hear? Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Jean.
Okay, they've decided to do some construction upstairs, so I hope you can hear me. So all of the technology that I think empowers the utopia that I was talking about is already here. I think it takes time to integrate all the silos because now they're very much in silos, and they need to be integrated, and they actually need good data to develop. So we're actually in a perfect storm. So we're talking about AI maturing, machine learning, 3D printing, and 5G. Because nowadays there's still a time lag when you use like heavy processing solutions, right? You still see that wheel turning, but with 5G or 6G, there's no longer that time lag. Everything will be instantaneous. So when you talk about your avatar, trying your clothes and so forth, everything will be instantaneous. It would feel like you're in the same space. So if I go back to the utopia, because the technology is there, but the solution isn't mature yet. So the AI fashion designer is out there. Walmart and Amazon actually is using AI to look at fashion trends and to design a line of clothing that they sell. So eventually they're gonna be relying all on AI designers, we think, eventually. And then you could have your personalized fashion stylist that knows your habits, your preference, your body size, and be able to dress you, the AI fashion designer. And then the virtual fitting room could be at your home. It used to be people send a box of glasses and you have to try each one, but now you could actually just, click on something and try it virtually, right? And then the other interesting thing is the 3D printing, because I think nowadays you could actually print the whole piece of clothing integrated. And now there's really interesting smart technology that you could integrate into the wearables, right? You could, I don't know whether people want it or not, but you could be notified when there's a social media posting about you. Something would light up in your jacket, and then you could be. Right now, there are solutions where you could charge from your shoes, and then you could actually post photos. You could change the pattern and color on your jacket on the fly. So those are really interesting things that maybe in the future 3D printing plus smart technology can enable.
Okay. Thank you so much, both of you. So this next question goes to Adrian. Could you share some examples of companies applying blockchain in fashion industry successfully? And
Sure.
of course, Joanne, if you have other examples, feel free to supplement.
Great. I think that a lot of companies, especially startup in this space, are trying to solve on the issue of authenticity. But in terms of corporate and more of brands out there, LVMH is the more obvious example that they launched something with Microsoft and Consensus. Consensus is a blockchain company based out of US and with office in Hong Kong as well, to launch a platform basically to track the branded items for LV, Louis Vuitton, and Dior, Christian Dior, particularly these two brands. As you know, LVMH has a lot of brands. And basically, they want to fight against fraud for any secondary items being sold in luxury market. Following on for LVMH, what they have done, a lot of brands are starting to look into supply chain because it's kind of like a fiduciary to the clients that none of the fake ones are being sold in the market. So Hugo Boss is actually looking into this as well. Hugo Boss is trying to launch something pretty similar. I presume that much of the broader groups will start to have adopted solutions. If you count in De Beer as one of the fashion brands, obviously they sell diamonds, but they actually trying to use the same kind of solution to track diamonds from the moment that they're being cut to the polish to being sold in jewelry stores with a ledger that they use claim it DLT, but it's actually a blockchain technologies as well. So I think much of the use cases in the brands now focusing on fighting against fraud, identifying the authentic items in the market.
And are these solutions being developed largely in-house or outsourced to startups?
Usually they find someone else, third party to do it, a consultant plus a technology companies, and my company personally, we are being got in touch by several fashion brands as well. We haven't started working on that, but yeah, usually they wouldn't have the in-house technology themselves.
Okay, thank you. So this question's related to the program, the Ideas Lab. So hello, James. From Cynthia, hello, James. If I decide to join the program and come to Hong Kong, can you help with the visa?
Yeah, so what we normally do is if people are sincere to come to Hong Kong, we could actually develop and work with the government to get a training visa. So yes, it's possible for us to help with the visa. It'll take a little bit more time. So for those of you who are interested in coming to Hong Kong, I would suggest that you apply as soon as possible. We could review your application. And again, we're accepting teams on a rolling basis. And then we could actually start the whole process of the visa.
Okay, that's great. So here's another question for Jean. Be it manufacturing or marketing, AI can be faster and more efficient. However, how will this affect the labor industry? Is there a way to implement AI without affecting low-skilled workers? Very relevant question.
I think there will definitely be a big impact. So all the research that is coming out is forecasting in 5 to 10 years, there'll be 20%, 40%, depending on the researcher. I think the one that's quoted most often is Oxford, saying that in 15 years, there'll be 47% displacement. So it's going to happen. I think we should actually accept that fact, because the job world will be different. So if I look at a job, you could probably separate it into a series of tasks. So there are tasks that is about productivity, efficiency, high volume that you could actually outsource to the AI. But there are tasks that might need the human touch and the final decision-making, the triaging of human information and intuition that could actually stay with the human. So I think there'll be impact, but I think there's a way to remix and match those tasks into jobs that humans can do in collaboration with AI.
I think that answers the question really well. We are unfortunately very close to running out of time. Mm-hmm. So to all the people who have not had their questions answered yet, thank you so much for sending them across, and we will get back to you via email or other contact details, and we'll have this posted up online as well, so that you can review it at your leisure. This brings us to a close today. Joanne, were there any final things you wanted to add, or James?
No, I hope you guys can give us more feedback. I mean, we've put together this topic, especially because it's quite dear to us, and we've noticed because of the fast fashion degenerating very quickly, this has actually been pushed forward much faster. And this past year, we've all been learning a lot and how to apply it. And so we hope to gather more great minds to discuss and think through how we can use it, not just on authenticity labeling on the blockchain part, but on the supply chain part, using what they've already developed for food and organic and GMOs to think through about it for fashion. And then separately for AI, we've definitely, like Jean said, the Utopia, we've already noticed a lot of the releases are open API platforms that can be utilized to read and think through. Why not develop it further for the application of fashion? There is no boundaries. We've had lots of people come through the last month saying they've been testing different ideas, but they need a testing ground to test it. So we're opening our doors to really think through how to test them. And we don't have all the solutions. We're gathering ideas, and hopefully pivoting quite quickly together with yourself. So yeah, it's exciting times for all of us. And if there are any topics, anything you can think of for the next webinar, we would open to consideration. And we'll be doing this on a monthly basis until March when we launch our program. So we have around 4 to 5 more series, and hopefully accommodating Europe sometime, and accommodating US sometimes, to hopefully have everyone attend.
Yeah, I just want to thank Jean and Adrian and Joanne for having such a great panel, Naeem Tara for being such a great moderator. Again, we want to talk about the Azavo project. Again, look at our site, www.azavoproject.com. You can find all the information there. We do encourage people who are passionate about building their business and develop their business further to explore this great opportunity. If you have any questions, you can contact us directly. All the information is on the site.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope this was an insightful and interesting discussion for all our viewers. And thank you again.
And any last words, Jean, Adrian?
I'm just saying it's a wonderful event. Thank you so much for the perfect organization.
Thanks, Jean. Adrian, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys.